There it is.
There it is. Okay, welcome then. This will be a meeting for the Crime, Delinquency, and Forensic Behavior Analysis Special Interest Group uh, with ABAI. And some of us are on here and maybe more are coming. We will just, the quick announcements then is in May, I will, as president or whatever my official capacity is, to be a presenter for the SIG at the business meeting at the ABAI virtual convention in May, and also we'll do our best to have a virtual poster presentation. I want to update. Hello, Angela. You can. We're recording. If you want, you should be able to unmute yourself if you wish to. I want to update the poster with any new accomplishments or interests that we may have. So feel free to email me or send whatever if you're working on projects. I'm in a doctoral program and I'm working on the very beginning stages, which means I've gotten nowhere yet, but on a project of for competency to trial restoration, using some discrete trial training, I hope, as a means to assist in difficult cases of competency restoration. So anything
Wow.
like that, that you would, it would be just the proposal, but I'm happy to put it on the poster because it gets people's interest, and a lot of people will see our SIG and they wonder what on earth we're doing. Hello, Molly. Everybody should be able to unmute themselves if they wish, and I'm recording this, or it should tell you I'm recording it. Okay, excellent. People are coming on board. So that's the main things that we have a poster session and a business meeting. Maybe I believe that we will get back to real meetings for ABAI, but I'll continue these kinds of virtual meetings in advance. But I hope that maybe we can have some kind of a panel or a seminar for our special interest group or just our field, our particular area of crime, delinquency, and behavior analysis. I hope we can work on something like that. And if anybody has anything to add on that, that would be great. But that is where we've had a couple of webinars on novel uses of ABA, that we've included some stuff about corrections and juvenile justice in the past year. That's what those are the main things that we've had. A lot of times I hear from people that they feel like, well, not much is going on with the SIG, and I want more to go on, so I'm trying to see what everybody else is doing and then see how we can organize things and get a good special interest group going. So some have kind of like newsletters or update letters. That would be a good thing to do. We've got a Facebook group, of course, and we've got that Groups.io, which I don't know if anybody uses, but I put the same information out there. That kind of took the place. That's another thing that took the place of the Yahoo Groups listserv, which is now no longer in existence by Yahoo's design. And so I replaced it with Groups.io. So those are the main updates for our special interest group. I say at this point, whatever you would like to ask or whatever input you want to have, I turn it back over to the rest of the group, and I'm happy to hear from you. And ask anything you want to ask, by the way.
I am very new to the forensic behavior analysis field. I joined this meeting and it said interview, and I was like, am I even supposed to be here?
Maybe I shouldn't have called it that. Yeah.
I'm a lowly BC ABA right now, but I came into some interest in this field recently when a person I know who was very well known in the community, was charged with murder or homicide of her 3-year-old daughter. And she was a church going person, very active in the church community, had this comedy thing where it was all clean comedy, and she was just bright and bubbly, and no one ever saw it coming. And so she's been, actually, I don't know, you might have heard of it. She won Worst Cooks in America, this show. And so her and her husband are charged with homicide of their adopted 3-year-old daughter. So anyway, she had a very large presence on social media and YouTube, and everything started disappearing. Well, I found this YouTube podcast that was posted about her adoption process and like her biological children. And anyway, I recorded it. It was a public thing, and I recorded it. And I was wondering, I reached out to the detective, asking him if that would be something that they would be interested in having, because it was gone shortly after. And I heard back from him, but then anyway, is that something that I should pursue to make sure that they have, because it's so on topic about what happened?
I mean, our mission is to, like any area of criminal, and I also consider it civil justice systems, where we have some kind of a influence with behavior analysis. And in cases like you hear those kind of cases, and I'm wondering what the discriminative stimulus was, like what happened. And there's got to be something, and of course it's like a lot of other serious behavior problems where people are saying, well, this just came out of nowhere. um, and so I'm not much. I don't have I've covered a few like of the individual criminal cases because some of them are interesting, but I maybe you could tell us more, because it's not like there's some kind of a dark secret there or something going on in the story that
Yeah,
is
I
something.
feel like there had
Okay.
to have been precursors.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she was very fame hungry, and always wanted her own TV show. She'd been pushing to get this adoption of a newborn baby about a year before, and she was all excited about that. She had 2 biological children, and they were both boys, and she was about to get this newborn baby, and that adoption fell through. And then she had the opportunity to, well, and it was a daughter. It was going to be a daughter, and she always wanted a daughter. And then she had the opportunity to adopt a 3-year-old girl, but she had to take her 2 biological brothers with her. I'll also note that the woman who adopted them, she was Black, and they adopted white children. So there's like a little racial thing that people are stipulating about too. So anyway, then she posts like all these things about her children, but it's always about this little girl. And then she never posts about the boys. And people have been looking at pictures, and they have bruises that look like they've been covered up, like large bruises on their face, bruises on their arms. She's wearing long sleeve shirts a lot of the time. And the video that I recorded, I thought it was poignant because it's the husband and wife in their podcast, and they have their 2 biological children as guest hosts, and they are basically asking the children about how they feel about the adoption and pressuring them to say like certain things, like the older kids like, nah, I'm good. And you can see that they're kind of getting upset with it. I know I'm using very subjective and mentalistic terms, but they're getting upset with the kids not answering like, yay, we're so excited. And then there's one point where the older son has his head down. She's like, sit up. What are you doing? And then like she's all about not cursing. And then she like almost curses. And then she says she's going to sick her husband on him. And then the video cuts and it comes back. And the older son, who was kind of getting scolded, comes back and he just looks so scared. Like he's like this, like looking at his dad, and his dad won't look at him. I don't know. There's just a lot of body language happening in that, and the cut, and it's been weighing on my mind whether or not I should pursue more to say, hey, I think this is something to look into. But also, I don't know, because they don't have anything about the biological children being abused or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the children aren't saying, you know, that they were, one of them said that they were spanked occasionally, but it, I don't even know where to go with this, I guess. And I'm very struck with the whole, that it was so sudden. I didn't know her as well. I'm very close with people that knew her very, very well. But and some of them say I could see that, and some of them say I never saw it coming.
So I was just looking it up now. Where are they at with the case? Are they? I mean, she's been charged and
They've been charged. She had a bond hearing recently. I watched that. They spoke about the brutal murder. Basically, what happened was I guess Ariel beat the daughter, and then the husband said, "You've gone too far." Went to CVS to get some Epsom salts, and then she was not responsive the next day, and they called 911 saying she'd been choking on water, and that when they asked her why she had so many bruises on her stomach, she'd been choking on water, and they tried to do the Heimlich, but then they noticed that she had bruises all over her body, and CPS was alerted immediately, and she was taken to the hospital and passed away. And the autopsy said that the beating had occurred over the course of a couple days. And so
do you know what the ultimate like cause of death was? Was it like brain hemorrhaging? Was
multiple blunt force trauma?
Okay.
So it's looking pretty bad then.
Yeah, she had her bond hearing, and her bond was denied. The whole time she was completely no emotion until they brought up that her husband had said something about her, and then she started getting mad. You could see she
maybe taking a few steps back, but like just for the defense, like on their case, I'm just really curious because, you know, like in clinical, you take intake forms and you find out the history. Have they talked a lot about her history?
She comes from a Christian family. Her family is well known in the community. Her father was strict, but there's no record of abuse from her upbringing. They were on the lower income side.
Where is this at?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah, I was just looking it up here.
I have to grab my charger real quick.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Simpsonville. Yeah, I guess she's coming back real quick. I'll say, I guess, like I always have some concern. Now I get Molly. You're saying you know, what you want to do about. So you've got some recording of them, and you're wondering what to do with it.
Correct. It was public recording on YouTube, but
Yeah.
everything disappeared. She had someone come online and just delete everything within 24 hours.
And you've still got it? You've still got
I've got it.
Well, I would say in any case, if you think you've got something important, you could just turn it over to the authorities. I'm always anymore. I had a podcast on what the article is called, crime exploitation, and I looked up some things on this case already. I'm always a little bit. I've become more hesitant, especially about cases that have not yet been adjudicated, because people just take it and report all kinds of things, and it's not always in the most healthy ways. And especially something like this that kind of gets people's interest. I wonder why anybody wants to be on a Works Cooks in America show, but maybe it's like a
She won. She
thing.
got $25,000.
Okay, that's the
Any
incentive.
type of social
Yeah.
media.
Also, it would elevate her platform and make her name more well known, and it was all about fame. So
It reminds me vaguely of, and now I can't, I just had something on it, but it was the case of the couple that had their son in a balloon. They were on a reality show, and they put him,
A balloon.
they
a hot
fabricated
air
it
balloon,
and
right?
said they put him in a hot air balloon that had like a spaceship type shape to it. They recently got their record, expunged, or they recently the governor gave him a break on it because it's been like 7 years or something. But yeah, he was on a reality show and he was trying to fabricate this incident to get a show. And the police, that they were being interviewed on television, and the child said, "We did this to get a show," right there in the interview. And the police saw it and then began pursuing him, and they got in a lot of trouble for it, probably deservedly so. But I suppose this allure of fame and then the income that could come from it is motivating people to do things that we probably hadn't seen before. I mean, it's just it's possibly a behavioral cusp, maybe, to be able to do these things, and then it's a motive for some cases good things, but it can also be bad things too. It's really kind of like, basically, I don't think they ever thought they were exploiting their child in this way, but it's exactly what they were doing. So it's interesting times we're living in. So that's kind of my reaction to that stuff. So, yeah, if you got something important, I'd turn it in. It's not like it's gonna be an interesting case. I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
sure.
I just had a friend get a hold of me actually the other day. We're gonna meet later today about this, but he got a hold of me and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast using your education, your forensics, your psychology, all of that?" And he has a podcast now. They do like beer reviews and brewery reviews and things like that. But yeah, he contacted me and he said it'd be cool to go over some of because I'm in Fargo, North Dakota, so it'd be nice to go over some of our local cases. The big one we're thinking is the Savannah Gray case. If you guys have heard of that one, that was pretty, that shook us a lot.
No, I hadn't, Bresley, I hadn't heard about that one. Maybe you could tell us.
Yes. So the Savannah Gray case, I want to say it was 2-3 years ago now, maybe 2017. Savannah Gray, she was a young woman. She was pregnant, and she was lured into her neighbor's home. It was a couple, a male and a female, and the woman lured Savannah into her home under the premise of like sewing or fixing something like that, and she murdered Savannah. She removed the baby from her stomach. Her husband then came home. They shoved Savannah's body in a closet. The police then came in and looked, and they walked right by the closet multiple times with her body in it. They did not find it. They then, I believe they found Savannah in the river, which is close by here. And then they found the baby as well. The baby is still alive. This woman had taken the baby, was passing it off as her own, saying that she had given birth, all of this stuff. And it was horrible. Luckily, they're both in jail now, and the baby is with her biological father, so things are good. But that was one that shook us big time.
And this is not the because it sounds very similar. I think her last name was Montgomery. She was recently executed. I think it's I'll look it up, Lisa Montgomery, for a very similar thing, killing a woman and taking the baby, the unborn baby out, and the baby lived. And I'm going to look that one up, and I'll look that. I think it's I'll put it in the chat here if I find it. But she was was one of the people that was executed just before, excuse me, just before President Trump left office.
Oh, interesting. I'll see if I can I'll find a link to the Savannah case too, and I'll post it in the chat here. Yeah, so that's one thing that here we go. Savannah Greywind. I don't know if I said that correctly. So that's one of, and I mean, this was like 10 minutes from me, from where I live. So it was interesting. That's one of the cases we want to talk about. And then I told him I would like to talk about the Kyle Bell case as well, which that happened when I was younger. And it was odd because I remember I must have been probably 6 or 7, and I remember hearing the name Kyle Bell. And that case was that happened in Fargo as well, close by. This man, he kidnapped I believe she was an 11-year-old girl, Gina North. It was interesting because my dad at the time of the investigation worked at a meat plant that Kyle Bell also worked at, and the police had come in and they were searching through the vats and things like that because they thought that was how Kyle disposed of her body, like ground it up and things like that. So that was another very interesting case that I distinctly remember. And that one, they also found her body in the river right over here as well.
Is there something special about Fargo there? I know there was the movie, the Coen brothers movie. I don't think that wasn't a real case, but you have some exciting stuff going on over there. So
we do. We have the Jacob Wetterling case as well. Yeah, I don't know if it's just something about, well, my friend wants to call the podcast Midwest Madness. So
okay.
Maybe it's our Midwest Madness we have going on. I don't know.
Well, anyone else wants to chime in on this, it's fine. I'm getting, as I'm looking on here, like we talk about the case you presented near Fargo, and then the Montgomery case. It looks like there's some other cases like this of pregnant women being murdered for their babies, as gruesome as that is. And if anyone can maybe look at something like that and see if there's any kind of a set of patterns, maybe demographic or other kinds of patterns. The FBI has this crime classification manual, and it was kind of a DSM of criminal behavior, of like these different categories, and they probably update it now and then, but I don't know if they have anything. That would probably be the first place I'd look to see, do they have anything of a category like this, and then you could look at some antecedents, like what's going on before. Is there something special about the perpetrators? It is kind of it looks like something that you could identify some clear antecedents. The antecedents, of course, is what I think is what people are looking for, or some kind of pattern, or they're just interested in the mystery of it. I've got my own podcast, which I try and connect people with, and then I found out that the podcast world's gone crazy. There's about like 600,000 of them out there, and some of it's like really, well, everybody's got something. But I think the true crime ones are pretty popular. I do find people are interested in concepts, of like what is the cause, or what are some patterns. But some of it, yeah, it's. I also like the ones about disappeared persons, like mysterious disappearances, and there's one like that. There's one that covers that. But there was a guy that disappeared while he was on the 911 call. Oh, I gotta maybe I'll look that one up. But it's a very eerie, and that's what they have no idea where he's completely disappeared. But he's on, and they think they hear another voice, or he's running through the woods, but the guy has just vanished. That's the only one that's vanished on a 911 call. But they probably have some podcasts on that.
Interesting.
But I digress. So yeah, the podcast, I can send you something. With nowadays, it's probably easier than ever to set one up. It's and there's stuff about if you ever see the Udemy, I think it's UDEMY, it gives these little courses and trainings for like $12 of how to do things. And I need to learn more myself. I've learned quite a bit myself just trying to get the podcast out there. And of course, you can monetize it and all that kind of thing. So interesting stuff out there. So okay, we can talk sometime about like setting up all the different ways you can set up a podcast. It's not that hard actually to set up, but it can be a little bit of work, like putting all the stuff into it, but it can be a lot of fun too. Okay, let me ask: is the folks on here, are we all members of the special interest group through ABAI? Just kind of give me a thumbs up if you are. Okay. Oh, y'all all are. Are you, Molly? I think, are you muted?
You're muted.
Is that the Facebook group?
No, here's what happened with the Facebook. So we used to have a Yahoo listserv, so we came up with a Facebook group, and I don't mind other people being on there, but the special interest group is a part of the Association for Behavior Analysis International. Unfortunately, you have to pay for that. But it is a good resource, and that is the actual SIG. And then you join the special interest group. But if you're not, that's okay. But you are a BCABA then, right?
Yes, newly minted.
Yeah, you might want to look at ABAI, because I think that with the COVID stuff, it's discounted rates to join. If you're a student, there's a discounted rates.
Ooh.
Otherwise, in my view, it gets a little pricey, but especially their conferences. But it's a good time to join, and then you get the benefits, and you can be part of the special interest group.
Is this part of the SIG, or is that something else, ABI, that I'm involved with?
You'll have to explain what that is, because I don't think it looks like a good manual there. So tell us about that, Presley.
I'm in. This is the Journal of the International Association for Correctional and Forensic Psychology. That's what it
Okay.
is. I'm in a lot of different groups and I just get things and I don't know where they
Mhm.
come from, but
Mhm.
so yeah, I've got like a whole bunch of these criminal justice and behavior.
Is
Comes
that
out.
that's the like maybe Department of Corrections, or who is like the is
It's the says quarterly print subscription IACFP.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So International Association for Correctional and Forensic Psychology.
Okay.
But it's really cool. It's got it's I think it comes quarterly. And it's just a little journal. It's got different original research articles and then some like reproductions, things like that. And they always cover, I mean, this one has talking about people with mental illness, community reentry from prison, um, alcohol use, probation, all these kinds of things. So I don't know. It's not the SIG, I guess, but it's another.
Oh, that's
Cool.
all right. And it's, I think it's okay to, I want to bring all kinds of things into it, our particular specialty is really good to connect with other specialties in corrections, police, what have you. I'm glad you brought that up because apparently our ABAI once had a journal for crime and behavior analysis, and I'd like to look at a chance to maybe restart that,
Yeah.
or start one, because if I guess it ran for a few years, but if we can get research and good articles, and it does not have to, I'm not sure it all has to come from BCBAs or anything. It's people studying crime, using behavior analysis, using ABA terms and concepts. Now, you brought up a pretty good journal. I'm going to try and see if I can share my screen, which can be a little bit dangerous thing sometimes, but um, I'll bet it'll work. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Let's see what's come up.
I'm gonna have to
Brought it
buy that, it looks like.
Is it coming up? Let's see. You're sharing. What happened to it? There it is. Uh, um, yeah, behavioral forensic using applied behavior analysis and psychological court evaluations. This guy, Douglas Rubin, I've tried to get a hold of him. And by the way, somebody like this, if we could, I can like set up and get interviews with, and like we could meet with them. But I had never heard of this book before until I got it recently. So if you can, I'm gonna see if I can zoom in here. Table of contents, concepts in behavioral forensic assessment. So murder, domestic violence, behavioral forensic assessment. It goes over the different models, behavioral predictors of sexual proclivity in a sexual offender.
Oh.
And by the way, connection with other special interest groups, because I've spoken with, there's a special interest group on behaviorism and sexuality. And then there's some on, social improvement and things like that. So there's a good chance we could have like a co-webinar or co-meeting with people. Okay, this is what got this. If you see this here, number 7, behavioral forensic analysis of competency to stand trial in the evaluation of offender accused of carjacking and breaking and entering. And so they go through this kind of a discrete trial training of someone that has some intellectual impairment, or maybe has some organic brain damage, of like pictures of like the judge and the jury, and then set an array and then do a training procedure so he can identify them, and then start identifying their roles and what they do, and making these distinctions. And then that can help him, because he would have trouble in court about who does he talk to, was he, that kind of thing. And he was found, they find people incompetent under the basis that you have a mental impairment, and it would be unfair to have you go to court when you can't even participate in your own defense. And so the medical model thinking is, okay, we'll send you to a hospital, you will get better. And if they give you medication at the hospital that reduces your symptoms, psychosis, then all the better. Then you become competent, and then you can get back to your trial for, whatever your charges are. But not every case is so effectively treated with medication. And then in those cases, what do those defendants, patients need? So this book is packed with stuff. If you know this guy, Douglas Rubin, maybe you can avoidance escape of an adolescent arsonist. Douglas Rubin is a forensic and licensed psychologist and national consultant in ABAI. He does it all: personality theory, addictions, rehabilitation, parenting. He has a forensic evaluation and conducts family individual therapy practice. He's done over 4,000 forensic evaluations. So,
Wow.
Let's see. I'm gonna stop sharing. We're all back in there. So that is the kind of, actually, that I'll go ahead and put. I will go ahead and.
I have another book as well that I used for one of my projects for school, and it's some of the research is kind of dated, but it's behavioral approaches. Yeah, the Morrison Brockman.
Yeah, I've got that. I think that's a good book. If you know, I'm not as skilled at this as I'd like to be, but if you can get on like library services and find articles that have been cited, that's a great book for that. You only want to find like up-to-date stuff. Open that book up. I've been looking at juvenile justice, a lot of stuff on token economies and juvenile detention facilities. Looking it up, going on EBSCO, PsycInfo, and see who has cited those particular articles, and you find a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, all of this book covers so much. I think one of my favorite sections, kind of sounds odd, but the behavioral treatment of rapists and child molesters. I thought that was very interesting. Again, some of the research is dated. They have like aversion, they do aversion treatment and things like that. But it's super interesting, especially because when I worked for a forensic psychologist in the area, she specializes in sex offender treatment. She has a nonprofit here as well for sex offender treatment and re-entry, those kind of things. So I would assist her with doing sexually dangerous individual evaluations and risk assessments for release, things like that, for our state hospital in North Dakota. There's the hospital for, the generally, forensic patients, and then there's a section for sex offenders. And yeah, so it's just reading some of the reports that I have, and I would go through the histories, all the police reports, text messages, everything. And just, it's very interesting to me on how, things like that can be treated. I did see something, I wonder how long ago it was. It was quite a few years. I believe it was in Germany. They began giving sex offenders the option of life imprisonment or chemical castration and release. And they found that those who chose chemical castration, their recidivism rates were almost zero. Once they were released into society, they were able to have jobs, and they weren't reoffending. And of course, there were then, if they didn't return for their chemical injections or whatever, then they were, brought in again. But yeah, I don't know, it's just very interesting.
Yeah, the chemical castration issue is very, if you really look at some of the data around that, it's very interesting. And they've even had cases in the United States of these are guys that are past, I mean, they've already served their time and they are ordering the chemical products from Europe to take themselves.
Oh,
That here, yeah, the wanting
wow.
to not reoffend.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wasn't as I just thought, well, is this really something that would work until I started hearing more about it. I've posted, Springer has that Morrison Brockman book. I
Oh,
posted it in the chat here. I'll tell you, Presley, what I learned from that book and other things I've looked when I first started getting into the field. Well, I started out in forensic psychology, but forensic and behavior analysis, I thought there was virtually nothing out there. And I thought,
me
oh, this is
too.
a whole new thing, and but that isn't the case. We're not outsiders. There's a huge amount of research in corrections, and there's a lot of application. The application of ABA has nothing to do with autism per se.
Hmm.
That's just a the way things have worked out with the needs of autism and developmental disabilities. But ABA has nothing to do with any particular diagnosis, or it works for whatever they can do research. It's just and get good results from. It's just how things have worked out in terms of funding, of politics. It was big. It was big for the treatment of schizophrenia. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Early on, it was considered, okay, we're going to make this the treatment for schizophrenia. It wasn't even a thing for autism or education, but this is how it's worked out. So the idea that we're just, there's plenty of data and research out there, and there's a lot more to be done. It's just a matter of making it mainstream, if you will.
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do. So,
Yeah. And
So,
I feel like, oh,
oh, no,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay. I feel like, with forensic ABA, the goal is to rehabilitate. And I feel like in America, our criminal justice system isn't too hip on rehabilitation. They're hip on punishment. And then we have, if there's no rehabilitation, then they wonder why recidivism rates are so high. And
hmm
this system is just, it's that funnel. And
hmm
once you're in it, it's hard to get out, and there's too much money in keeping people in prison. And so I think it's really hard to try to advocate for the rehabilitation of these people instead of just, you know, locking them away for the rest of their lives. A lot of people think, oh, sex offenders can't be rehabilitated. These people can't be rehabilitated. They don't deserve to be rehabilitated, those kind of things. So I think that is an issue that we can run into in this field as well.
hmm
There was a podcast that I remember posted on the Facebook site, and it was about two federal agents. One did a master's in behavior, ABA, and the other one was just background of law. And they talked about how in the research, most of the research was posted back in the day, not under Java or anything of that sort, more so under the category where it's more accessible for police officers or agents. That way, when they read, it's more dissectable for them in terms of vocabulary. But they did say that those articles can be translated into behavioral terms. It just is going to take a lot of time. So instead of posting it on both sites or trying to translate it, they kept it on something that was accessible to their agents.
hmm
It's a really awesome podcast, but that made me think, wow, I want to now dig into those articles and that research and kind of translate it into more behavioral terms, because they did mention there was a lot of behavior having to do with their research.
hmm I think they're often using terms like behavior management or contingency management, things like that. But so that's a good point, Emily, that it's not, yeah, don't just look in ABA journals, few that there are. There's a few things out there that that were in JABA and some things like that of like success in community drug courts and things like that. But it's in other areas too. It's in criminal justice, probably police journals and
Yep.
psychology,
Police
sociology,
psychology. Yep.
police psychology, things like that. So.
Mhm.
Okay, well, so yeah, there's a lot out there, and I'm trying to get the more we can work to get ourselves organized and get the information out there. I really, I'm looking to see like in the next year that the other members of our SIG or those that are interested in the work can be a part of the process, and maybe we could say like somebody is well, I guess somebody that's savvy with technology, which I've learned quite a bit, but not enough. It's getting a little bit better, but of modern technology, dissemination, and organizing, and then a kind of I don't know, an office of public relations or communication to the other SIGs, to the other journals, to get us networked out into other people is the direction I want to go into, because I took over being head of the SIG, I think about 3 years ago. The person that had it before, it just she was so busy with other things she couldn't do it all. And I think it should get beyond just one person. I think it should be like a group of people that share a common vision. And it sounds like we have this. It's the dissemination of ABA to criminal and civil justice systems. It's a lot of it's very intriguing stuff, but I always want to emphasize that we're going off what can be verified with data and demonstrated, and uh, in a positive way, in a positive direction. And by the way, I kind of go off on tangents a little bit, but I did post. There is, I think he's an attorney. I've never met him personally. It sounds like he's a real interesting person. But Brent Turvey, he specializes in. He's got a podcast called Criminal Psychology.
Yeah.
That if you've seen some of that, I think it's the first episode of it, but he did emphasize that we want to talk. We will talk about individual cases, but we want to talk about concepts. And he brought up something I really didn't know that much about, the Britney Spears conservatorship. That it kind of threw me a little bit that somebody, I think she's almost in her 40s now, but her father has complete control of her money. And the laws about conservatorship are supposed to be, the idea was for maybe the elderly or the people that are infirm to protect their assets. But this is an example of how the law can get twisted and stretched into this different manifestation that is nothing like what it was intended to be. I found it very interesting discussion that could happen. So our field is a part kind of a sociological view, and then we kind of get into the realities of the legal system. I found that with the competency evaluations and things like that, it gets into some very interesting stuff. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel about it. What else do we want to? We've got about like 5 minutes left. What else do we want to cover? Presley, you still with us? You may have a. Oh, I think she's muted. Muted there. So Molly, you're a BCABA. Can I ask what state you're in?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, the BCABA. I'll tell you, I found that depends a lot on the state of
Right.
the jobs, because out in some states, I don't think it's worked out the way the BACB wanted it to work out, where we had BCBAs, and then the little A's, would be implementing plans and things like that. When I worked in Michigan, they really followed that whole pattern: BCBA, BCABA, RBT, all that kind of stuff. So how does it work for you job wise and your impact where you're living at?
Right now in South Carolina, I can function as a BCBA basically with the supervision of a BCBA. So I basically have my own caseload. I write my own programs. I write my behavior plans, and I kind of just get everything okayed by my supervisor. I'm also still in school, getting my master's to become a BCBA. So, yes, that is on the agenda.
What school are you going through?
FIT.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the last group of people that are going to be able to test under the 4th edition. So I graduate. Yep. Are you there
Me
too?
too, yeah. I
Yeah.
think next
Things are
month.
going to change, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes. So I should graduate in August and then test in probably October by the time I get all my stuff to the board and approved and stuff like that.
Before 2022, when you have to have the 2,000 supervision hours instead of the 1,500.
Not only that, I'd have to redo some courses.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah.
Some of my courses will be obsolete, like they're not going to be doing EAB anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, which I really enjoy EAB. I'm in it right now. I have my little cyber rat and stuff, and we're doing our
Oh,
experiment.
yes.
Yes, it's a
Cyber
lot
rat.
of fun. But yeah, I do know that not every state views a BCABA the way that it's viewed in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of other places, they kind of are viewed as a glorified line therapist.
Yeah, I think it has to do with funding and the insurances and all that kind of stuff. It's all the same kind of issue. What gets supported and so good. Yeah. So I'm not wherever we can apply ourselves, and you may find even in the settings you're at, there may be some opportunity to encounter some forensic work in one capacity or another. So if you find something like that, I mean, I'm looking, I think I bet we could put together another webinar. If you have anything interesting to go over, I think it would be a good thing to pursue. And I'd like to ultimately set up, if we could have some kind of a journal or a newsletter about our area to get the word out. So I think that'd be a couple goals for us. I'm gonna reformat the poster, and maybe to this group and to some others, I'm gonna send out a draft because I want to get feedback on what our poster, because before it's just been one person doing it. I want to get the group more into what we're presenting as a group. And I invite you all to, if you're with ABAI, Molly, like the student discount with COVID and all this is not too bad if you want to look into that. To ABAI in May, the virtual business meeting, we can go over some more of this stuff. So here we've been, we're up at our hour. Is there anything else?
Yes, Timothy, how would you want us to help you organize?
That is, I wish I had a succinct answer to that right now, but I'm looking, ultimately, I'm looking to have officers and so we'll have I'm not going to be the president forever, and eventually somebody will move up into position. And that could be something at our business meeting to say, okay, for the next year, who's going to take over as officer and what is our goals. So basically right now, see anybody that wants to volunteer to be a part of the administration of the SIG, let me know. Absolutely, I'll put you down. And then if you can at all attend the business meeting or another webinar like this, we'll make sure we have an officers meeting, and then we'll outline how we can organize the SIG. And then, put out all our goals, put out the mission statement, and then we can have more meetings like this, and it can be on Facebook.
I also wanted to mention really quickly, I'm gonna conduct a few interviews, not on a podcast, but it'll be written interviews with a few law enforcement just to see how they feel about behavior analysis and applied in their day-to-day lives and what they think it could be helpful, what's missing for them. So if I do come up with any information, I'll share that with you as well.
And that would be a good, those kind of articles. It doesn't have to be a journal article, but it's that kind of informational articles would be useful.
Yeah, especially with law enforcement. I actually reached out to the local police departments, me and another BCBA at work, because they're, you see those stories about inappropriate police reactions to people with special needs.
Mhm.
And I reached out and I was like, hey, we would love to do a training for the police departments on how to appropriately react to situations like this. And they never got back to me. So I guess they are not interested, which is unfortunate, but it's good to have that law enforcement input too.
And if something bad happens and it becomes news, they may become interested.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
keep that in mind. Okay, very, very good. Really enjoyed the discussion, and I'm out of time now, but I hope that we can do this in the future, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.